All right, welcome to another episode of Behind the Build, the podcast where we are interviewing the design industry, trying to understand them, their operation, how they find their inspiration, what they do, what their operation looks like, understanding the growth and development of their overall practice. And today's episode is with Jordan Heckman from Jordan Station. So Jordan, I know that you are practicing nowhere close to Toronto. So I appreciate the fact that you've taken time to drive into the city today. I very much appreciate that. Thank you very much. Thank you for taking time.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
We've only recently connected. So the benefit of being able to speak to you today is I also get to learn a lot about you in your practice. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. One of the first things I want to ask you is, how long have you been running Jordan Station for?
Yeah, so I started Jordan Station back in 2019. I'd always been doing work for myself, but I was working for a large company back then, and decided that, custom home design and working directly with homeowners was exactly what I wanted to do. So I started it out of my basement. Never had plans of working or having employees. I never had plans of having a big office, and that quickly changed. So throughout the years, we've expanded. We're at 7 people now.
Okay.
We've got a great office right in, we'll call it downtown Jordan Station. If you've ever been to Jordan Station, there's not much of a downtown, but we've got a great space there, nice and central for all of our clients.
So just for everybody to understand, so Jordan Station is located, if we're in Toronto in Canada, Jordan Station is located much closer to the region of Niagara Falls or Niagara and Grimsby, right? You're in between the two.
That's right. Yeah, we're just outside of St. Catharines. It's very easy to miss. One exit on the highway and you're blown past it.
I actually pointed out on a recent road trip. I was driving past. I said to my wife, I was like, yeah, there's Jordan Station.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so you started the practice in 2019. You're up to 7 employees, and you're saying you never had the ambitions of wanting to have employees.
No.
So I'm going to touch on that a little bit later. What I am curious to understand is, when did you decide in your life that you were on to go ahead and engage in a life of design? What sparked that? When?
I think I was born with it, to be honest. From a very young age, I was always inspired by architecture in general. I'd spend my days as a kid not playing video games. I'd be drawing floor plans.
Really?
I'm not kidding. Yeah, I'm not kidding. I've got books of them at home, being a kid. And I never really questioned that was what I wanted to do. I might have, swayed a little here and there through school, but in the end, I landed right where I should have been. So it's been a lifelong thing for me.
Interesting. Were you space planning like your bedroom at the age of 3?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It was crazy. Like, I'd spend like days and days, like, obviously anybody that was, that's creative, they're playing with Lego, they're playing with Connects as kids. I was doing the same things, but I was drawing floor plans. I'd be out building like little huts in the backyard. I built a shed when I was like 10 years old, with no parental supervision. It was unbelievable what my parents let me do that.
What material were you using at this?
Wood.
Oh,
yeah.
With a saw?
Yes.
Oh, and like a hammer and nails and a power screwdriver.
I can't say that I have a power screwdriver, but yeah, hammers and nails. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I'm curious, what was like one of the first floor plans you drew? What did you draw? Do you remember?
Obnoxiously large homes, and they always had pools inside. For some reason, that was my thing. So, and it was just with graph paper, pencil, and my parents saved all of that stuff.
And did you come from the family where design was a part of the overall genetics?
Not at all.
Okay.
Not at all. No, there was no one in my immediate family that had any ambition to be in the design industry. Not even the construction industry, to be honest. My mom did daycare. My dad was a GM worker. My grandpa was a GM worker. So yeah, I'm not sure where I got it from.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so early on in your life you're gonna sign up and go to school for this and hopefully make a career of it. So walk me through that. Where did you in high school? Was this something that you were actively doing as well?
I'd say I was doing a little bit less during high school. I think I was a little more focused on athletics and running and that kind of stuff. I had always had ambitions to go to the States on scholarship. Didn't put a ton of focus into architecture for what? At that point, running for track.
Okay.
Yeah. So
long distance, short distance?
Mid distance, 400 and 800 meter. Yeah.
Okay.
So that was my big focus through that. And I'd always thought I was going to go to the States. Didn't get the scholarship that I wanted.
Yeah.
Ended up going to Carleton University. I had applied for architecture school there a few years in a row.
Okay.
Did not put the time into getting my portfolio together. Inadvertently did not get in because I didn't put the time into it.
Surprising.
Shocking, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I actually spent my first couple of years at Carleton I went in for math and physics originally, didn't love it, switched to environmental science, did that for a couple of years. And it kind of hit me. It's like, what am I doing? Like, this is not what I wanted to do with my life. I wanted to get into architecture. And at that point, I had no idea about architectural technology. So a little, obviously the more technical side, the stream of architecture. So dropped out of Carleton. Parents were not too impressed. I said, I got to figure out my life. I went and built homes for a few months with a home builder. And then finally, that's when I found out about architectural technology at Algonquin College, registered there, went through the fast track program, completed 3 years in about 2.5. I took a break in between, but yeah, I went through that program, very rigorous program. One of the more challenging ones to go through. But while I was working there, I got a job working for an architect in Ottawa, did my co-op with them, worked through the summers with them, gained a lot of really valuable experience.
Right.
They were a really good firm because they kind of pushed me to do projects on my own. They kind of said, like, we don't do a lot of residential stuff. If you want to take that stuff on, take it on your own. You can do the work and it'll give you really valuable experience.
So were they the ones that were selling the services to the clientele, or you were going out there and selling their services to the clientele and then fulfilling it?
I was actually going out and selling my own services.
Oh.
Unbelievably. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I wanted to do more residential stuff. They did some residential, but it wasn't a lot.
Mm.
So they said, like, go out there, like, get your name out there, get some projects, get some experience. We'll help you through it if you have questions or anything like that. And that gave me a big understanding of how to work with clients.
Right.
From a fairly young age. Like, I was, probably 21 at that time. I'd say that I started doing that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. So you went out there and sold your own services to these clientele, but you were still at that point registered under the other company that you're working for.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
What was the scale of project that you were looking at the time?
I did everything from small little interior renos to full additions at that point.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was a learning curve for me, just to, you're taking the principles that you're learning in school and actually putting them to work in the real world. And that was never the challenge for me. It was learning how to engage with clients.
Right.
Was the thing that you're really learning how to do, and how to manage your time, expectations, and all of those other things that come along with the design.
And did you find that when you were in school that they did not give you the insights into those streams of knowledge and how to manage that?
No, not at all. Like, it was so technically based through school. So you don't learn how to interact with clients. You don't know how to speak to them. You don't learn about project management and schedules and, managing. I mean, you learn a little bit about managing multiple things at a time just based on the amount of workload, but I don't think it was in the same capacity as what you would expect, or what you would, it wouldn't be to the same capacity that you would experience in the real world working with clients.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, because I think that that's probably one of the hardest elements of what you do is selling someone on services and then actually coming through and delivering on what you've just sold.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? I think the most educational experiences that people have in this industry, the overall riding consensus is that you do not get that level of understanding and education. They miss it.
Yeah, so completely.
What's the technicality of it all?
Yeah, you miss it completely. And I think that's the big differentiation between, going to university for architecture and going to college for architectural design. Like, college aspect of it is very technically based. Architecture school is very design based, and there's not a good migration of the two together to create, someone that has that balance of both aspects.
Right.
So you have to learn it through industry.
Right. And do you take between when you're working at that firm in Ottawa and now? I know that there's a range of time in there, so this is a relatively loose question.
Yeah.
But are you doing a continuation of education on the principles of running your business, on sales, on marketing? Like, what does that continued education look like for you?
Yeah, there's a lot of opportunities for continuing education, and it was from, not only from the technical side of things, but even in the last few years, like learning more about the sales process and business development and like how do you actually structure your business. And especially when you get employees involved, like you get to a point where like you have a certain number of employees, you have to have policy manuals in place. Like you have to have, actual pay structures based on like achievable KPIs and everything else. And those aren't things that you learn other than through reading, research, speaking with other individuals, business owners. So like you have to spend a lot of your time, especially in a role of mine right now, like learning more about that. So like I'm enrolled in sales, like sales strategy. I'm enrolled in business development strategy, strategic planning, business coaching, and leadership development. Like this is all just to continuously grow my business, and it helps me be in a position where I can understand, what my employees would expect from a company, right? In terms of, compensation, long-term plans, even to the point of like, I'm not gonna be alive forever. What's gonna happen with the business when I'm done? How's it gonna keep it on? Yeah, exactly it. So there's a lot of that. And I mean, even from the continuing education side of things through, learning about, new materials and new concepts and stuff. Almost immediately when I moved back to Niagara, I started working for a large multidisciplinary firm. And I was thrown into some massive projects. Like we're talking like $30-40 million condos, worked for the school board. I worked for a lot of different things. I did a lot of high-end residential too. And I was convinced right off the bat, it's like there's a program through the OA, so the Ontario Association of Architects, where technologists that went through that 3-year diploma can actually get a license with the OA. A lot of people don't know about it. It's in flux right now, but I am immediately enrolled in that, and automatically I had to work under an architect. I had to get a certain level of or a certain number of hours through experience with them. I had to do continuing education. I had to do the enrollment course through the OA at the conference. So that forced me to be involved in all of that stuff. And it also gave me an opportunity to see all different facets of architecture. So everything from we would start obviously with schematic design, programming, conceptual design, the technical side of things, writing, specifications, full-on project management, contract administration, like every aspect of a project.
Interesting. I assume it's something like even contract administration. You're not learning that at Algonquin, right?
No, you're not.
Like that. No. That's an element that directly relates to being a certified architect.
It is, yeah. It's a huge learning curve. Yeah. Like you learn a lot about contracts, and to be honest, most of it's just law. It's not even about design, right? It's understanding contract law. Yeah. So
interesting. Okay, so you I'm going through this map. So you finish school, you go and you work for a firm in Ottawa. You come back to Niagara. You're working for another multidisciplinary firm there, where you're working on both residential and commercial projects, institutional projects. And then at what stage? How long were you there before you realized that you wanted to break away from that and start your own practice?
I was there for about 5 years. I was at the point where I was offered like partner options in the company, and that made me do a lot of thinking. It's something that I always wanted. I never wanted to be just an employee. I had kind of bigger aspirations for having a little bit more control about like how the company is actually structured and how it presents itself to the public. And at that point, I went on vacation. I met this guy from Alberta, him and his wife, and we kind of spent 10 days with this couple. They were probably 15 years older than me. But this guy, he had worked for the government. He had started his own company, and he fully convinced me. He's like, just based on my experience, my ambitions, my aspirations, it's like, don't work for somebody else. Like, find what you love, start a business based on it, and you're going to just enjoy your life that much more. I came back, and within 2 months, I had started the company. Yeah, it was just like, I knew I didn't want to be involved in the high-rise condos. Like the school board stuff I liked, but I was working heavily as a contract administrator at that point, and it was taking a toll. You're constantly fighting about money, and it's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to work with homeowners that were spending their money on something that they were truly passionate about. Yeah. that was, I think, the realization. So that's why I started Jordan Station Psycho.
It's a completely different game, right? When you're dealing with people and you're talking about them and their own money and the decisions that they make is different than a board of directors or a business owner about to build out a commercial space, or a developer developing a condo building, or something institutional. They're just so inherently different.
They are.
People's connection to their money and the how far a dollar can or cannot stretch in residential construction is something that I guess is in some ways is also very humbling.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it is.
So you begin Jordan Station. It's 2019. You're alone. You're in your basement. And what does it look like for you to acquire your first clients to make this palpable, that you can actually go ahead and make this work?
Yeah, it's funny. I had actually told the company that I was working for that I was leaving. I was starting my own company. They needed me to stay longer. So I was really fortunate where they let me go part-time. I spent my time finding new clients. And I think I had worked both for about 3 months, and then I was like, finally, like, look, guys, I got to go. Like, I'm really busy right now. And I started by reaching out to contractors. And my whole philosophy, like, I'd worked in that commercial environment where, like, if you've worked in commercial design and you worked in residential design, there's a big difference in the quality of the drawings that come out. Commercially, it's a lot more detailed. And I found that in residential design, like, no one had really brought that level of detail into the residential drawing packages. Most of the packages I had seen were bare bones. You had to interpret a lot. It wasn't always clear the intent of how that was doing. So that's what I sold them on. Like, I told them, like, I'm bringing this commercial aspect. These are really highly level detailed drawings. And I always had a set of drawings with me, and like, this is what you're going to get from me. And it's a completely different thing. You're not going to be questioning how things are going together, or, it's not going to be a project where, the HVAC hasn't been coordinated with the structure. So you're not worried about ducts going through beams and those kinds of things. And I obviously gained a lot of clients through those first couple of years working with local contractors.
Right.
And that's how we started building our name in Niagara. And just through the years, we continued to do that outreach and speaking with other builders in the area, and obviously further out, as now we're out in Toronto chatting with you.
Yeah. Interesting how that works, right?
Yeah, it is.
So okay, so you're now on your own. You're realizing that it works. What are the first few projects for you look like? What types of projects were you getting?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'll be honest with you. Like, we did obviously lots of like some small stuff. So interior reno, small additions.
Yeah.
I randomly had a client that I ended up getting for within the first couple months of business for a new build in Toronto, custom home, infill lot. She knew that it was a young business. She wanted to try someone that wasn't local to the GTA, wanted someone that could think a little bit more dynamically about how to utilize this property, right? Very similar to your property. It's like, it's a narrow property. It was a little bit deeper. There wasn't a lot of room to work with. Mm-hmm. And yeah, she put her faith in me. Was very fortunate to have someone like that. That helped me obviously gain a little bit more traction in the industry. And even like, I was out at her place, I think 3 or 4 months ago, checking it out. Like, still 5 years later, we're still in communication. I think she had a great experience, had a great product out of it. And, yeah, I think that's most of our projects were kind of, lesser scale of that, but we had to get our foot in somewhere, right? Right. Had to gain that respect somehow. So.
And from there, you were acquiring enough projects that at one point or another, you're establishing to yourself, I can't take this all on. So what was the first spark to make you realize that you needed to hire someone else? And what was that next? What was that first employee who, when I say what or who, mm-hmm. what did they do? What was their function?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Before the end of my first year, I quickly realized that I couldn't continue working like 18 hours a day, all the time. So I was probably working on 20, 25 projects at a given time. And that was a clear indication. It's like, okay, I'm going to need help. Just so happened, someone was following us on Instagram. We had an Instagram right from the beginning, and this girl really liked what I was doing. So she actually reached out and said, "Hey, are you looking for help?" It was kind of perfect timing. I was just thinking about it, ended up hiring her on, and she helped from the technical side of things right off the bat. So she's with us for a couple of years. She came in and did site measurements for any of the renos that we were working on. She put together as-built. I'd do the concept design with the clients, and then she'd take over the technical drawings from there.
Mm-hmm. And then how many more projects do you have to take on to be able to get to the point where you're like, okay, I need someone else now on design. I need someone else now on help on operations. Like, what was the path? At what stages were you realizing that you needed to have those additional people on staff?
I think we hired every 6 months for the next 2 years. It was quick. Yeah. So, meanwhile, still working in my basement. But we got to the point where I had 3 people working in my basement. I knew that we had to move out of there. My wife is a teacher. She liked her summers alone, not with people in the basement. So I immediately started looking for office space in Jordan Station. I'll say it again. Jordan Station's really small, so there's not a lot of office space. So we ended up finding a place. We had to move 2 tenants out to take over the space. So their spaces had to be built. Then we did work on ours. Meanwhile, we were in a temporary kind of, we'll call it a room, for about, I think it was probably 6 months or something like that while we had that done.
I've heard a few of these stories.
It's
that room.
That room, yeah. Where everybody's sitting there. There's a conference table. You're having meetings with everybody else.
Feel the person's like presence against you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So yeah, we did that. At that point, I had a mentor, Lee Curtis. He's our design manager now. He was a good friend of mine. We had worked together for 5 years in the company before, and he came over at that for a beer one summer night, and I kind of said to him, like, any interest in like leaving? He had been at this place for 14 years. He was one of the owners, and somehow convinced him that this was a good idea. So that was the kind of like changing point for Jordan Station Design Co. Having another person that had the experience that I had, if not more. He taught me everything I know. That was a big change for us. So he came on board. We had hired another person at the same time. I think we were at like 6 or 7 people or something like that at that point. And that gave me the ability to like really split the workload. At that point, we were doing like 150 to 200 projects a year. Not all of them large, some of them small, obviously, but that gave me the opportunity to really split the amount of work. So we had 2 designers that were able to, communicate with clients properly, like guide them on the path to where they needed to go. That was kind of the start of COVID. We had hired a few other people. We had hired an administrator at the same time. We quickly realized like I couldn't do all the invoicing and all this other stuff while trying to design. And we kind of stayed at about 8 or 9 people for a couple of years. Just recently, we kind of scaled back a little bit with workload, just based on like changing the amount or the size of the projects that we're doing and the amount of them that we're doing a year. We need a little less people. So we've been able to scale back a little bit. Yeah, it's been a crazy journey on that side.
It sounds like it.
Yeah.
So you go from having 8 or 9 to now you're at 7 people.
Yep.
And scale of project now comparatively to what it was at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
What's the scale of the projects that you're looking at now?
A lot bigger stuff. So at the beginning we're doing these little tiny small renos, additions. Your pretty typical stuff that you see happening everywhere. We had done, obviously through the years, we did a lot of custom homes. We've become known for them. And we're now at the point where we're working with clients that are building these 6,500, 7,500 square foot custom homes. Are spending, a year plus their time working with us, designing these, call them masterpieces, right? Because there's tons of, I'll call it blood, sweat, and tears put into these. It's a ton of effort, but that's to the scale that we're at now. So we're able to do that.
And is there a certain type of architecture that really drives and motivates you more than another?
I've never allowed myself to be pigeonholed into a specific design style. I think I've been asked this question so many times, and And I always think back at it, it's like, okay, if I was going to build a house,
Yep.
what would I build? There's a reason that I renovated my house. I can't decide what I want. I think like I love so many different design styles that I don't think I could pick a specific thing. So I've always throughout the course of like Jordan Station Design Co. and us expanding, like I've never wanted us to be pigeonholed into something. I've always wanted to be in a position where like, okay, you know what? If a client wants a specific style, we need to be able to adapt to them. We need to, like, if that means doing more research or more time has to go into that design process to achieve what they're looking for. That's what we get excited about, like something new, something different. So
is there a certain detail that you found that you've come across and you've implemented or you've wanted to potentially implement that you have not yet had the opportunity to?
Like from a design standpoint?
Yeah.
I can't say there's anything from a design standpoint that we haven't done per se. I always think about like the technical side of things too, and like trying new building technologies and that kind of stuff. So like we've had a lot of clients reach out to us because we have a really good technical background, obviously. So like we had the opportunity in the past couple of years to design a house in Niagara-on-the-Lake. It's right on Lake Ontario. Our client came to us. He wanted about a 2,000 square foot cottage. It turned into closer to 5,000 square feet, but he was really interested in like using new technology. So we had designed it with T-studs, which most people probably haven't heard of. It's a different style of structural framing, basically 2x2s that are fastened together with dowels. It's really good thermal performance, obviously, because you're losing a lot of that thermal bridging. We're using Hunter panels on that. We used a product called Formadrain. So instead of actually forming out your footings with wood, these were like pre-manufactured drainage systems that you pour the concrete into and they stayed in place. So like those little things have been really cool to try to implement into construction and bringing people, like, or making people more aware that there's other ways to do things. But from a design standpoint, I think we've tried like so many different things. Like to say, like, even like if you look at some of the designs that we've come out with, they're not really an exact style of architecture. I think they're a mash of a few different things that is still aesthetically pleasing, but kind of incorporates all of these different ideas that our clients have brought to us.
Right.
Yeah.
On the point of you talking about different types of assemblies and materials, have you ever looked at certifying anything in Passive House?
I've thought about it. At this point, it's a time thing, finding the time to do stuff like that.
For you to become certified.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And I mean, even with my staff, I think it'd be great. Our big thing with our staff is we're trying to get them all licensed in something. So whether they have a BCIM license or if they go through their licensing with the OAA, that's another option. So that's always been like step one. We want them to like go through that process of, gaining the experience necessary to be able to write these exams and go through that process. I think it builds them as, not only human beings, but like it gives them a purpose outside of like just the mundane day-to-day thing that they're doing, perhaps. Right.
And are you supporting them in doing that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like you'll send them, you'll help cover the cost of going to school?
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be necessarily that they need to go to school, but if they need to take courses, if they need to, complete hours in a specific type of, or a specific facet of architecture, like we're here to help with that. We pay for all their testing. If they've got to go, say, like the OAA conference and do their entrance course, that's all going to be paid for. Stuff like that. So
yes, the continued education is a big component for you from your staffing standpoint.
Yeah,
I mean, it would make sense based on what you've telling me about yourself and what your continued desire to want to continue to improve.
Yeah, that's exactly.
Wow, I use the word continue a lot. It's like Owen Wilson in a movie saying "wow." So the company gets to the point now where you have a solid core group of 7 people. The projects that you're looking at now are larger scale projects, a lot of custom homes. And are you stuck working in a specific region? I know that as I say this, I know that I did ask that alluded to this, and you said you're here in Toronto, and you said your first custom home was in Toronto, so I understand that. But outside of Ontario, are you looking at anything, or have you had an interest in looking at anything that goes beyond Ontario?
Yeah. So we actually have. We've got one project under construction on the island in Vancouver. We've got another one starting construction very shortly, just kind of on the border of BC and Alberta. We've got a few apartment buildings that we did I'll say apartment buildings. They're small. They're like 4 units, but out in Halifax, we've got, a couple custom homes that we've done on Manitoulin Island. So we've had the opportunity to reach out to these other areas, which has been great. So we've never shied away from working outside of the Niagara region or outside of the GTA. It's just about finding the right clients that are ready to do that.
Right. Yeah, I would have to assume that your ability to be able to go fly out to a place in BC or Alberta or Nova Scotia and to be able to see the different type of topography.
It's a completely different environment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The way the sun moves across a potential mountain range with trees.
Absolutely.
Is completely different than our flatland here in Ontario.
Yeah. It's mesmerizing. And I mean, if you think about it, like we always take into consideration views and sunlight and all of these things when we're designing a place. But I think it's like that much more enhanced when you're working in an environment like that. Like you're sitting on, at the kind of edge of a mountain range and like, you know what you want to wake up to in the morning, like what you want to see. And those things are really driven into the design to make that work.
We touched on this before we started our interview here, and I should say our conversation interview. That's too formal. We talked about travel and a little bit about family, and I'd like to touch on that a little bit.
Yeah.
So traveling, you're saying that you're about to go to Dubai, and you've gone there. You go there every year with family. So outside of Dubai, are there other places that you have traveled that you have drawn inspiration from for what you do, or other places that you've been drawn to be able to get a sense of relief from all the things that you're looking after?
Yeah, of course. I mean, obviously, I think for most designers, going to Europe is important. I think there's so much history there in architecture. So my wife and I, a couple of years ago, we traveled through Holland, went through France, and went through Italy. And even through those 3 countries, like you see such a vast variety of design. I'm a beach guy. Like I love the beach. I love the Caribbean. My wife and I have been to most of the islands down there.
Okay.
Obviously, architecture has not always been a prominent piece of the Caribbean kind of vibe.
Yeah, like Nassau and Bahamas, they will have some.
They can be, yeah. And like recently, we've really enjoyed going to St. Martin. St. Martin's half Dutch, half French. It's quite developed. You're seeing now like there's a lot of modern architecture coming there. There's a few different architects from southern U.S., so Florida, mostly, that have kind of like started bringing in that style of modern architecture there. They're doing a really good job at it. I've explored most of that island, whether walking or biking or running, and some of these properties that they have out there, like there's $30-40 million homes sitting on the edge of these cliffs overlooking the Caribbean, and that's inspired me from a modern side of things. Like there's some really cool design that they've implemented there.
Right.
Yeah.
And you also said you're a foodie, so out of all these places that you've gone to, what have been some of the best places that you've had the experience of being able to sit at a nice restaurant, I guess architecturally, and also appreciate some good food? Where are some of the highlights of your travels?
Yeah, I mean, anybody that's been to Dubai understands like it's a magical place. Like the architecture, the engineering, everything that's been put into that country to get it to where it is today it's unbelievable. And just given the amount of culture that's there, majority of the people that live in that country are expats, so they're coming from all over the world, and it's brought a lot of different taste into Dubai. And like I was saying to you before, like you can't have a bad meal when you go there. Like it doesn't matter where you go, it's like everything is the best of the best. So I've really enjoyed the food there. I have to say my most memorable meal that I've had on vacation was in a little town called Minori on the Amalfi Coast of Italy. And it was one of the last nights that we were there. My wife and I sat down, and it was just in this courtyard, and I had lemon pasta. It's like the simplest thing, like just the atmosphere. Like it was obviously a very old town. We're sitting in this little square, stone buildings all around us, and it was just like pinch me kind of moment. And I enjoyed that more than any other place that I had been in Italy, because that was actually, it wasn't really a tourist town. It was where the locals had their vacation homes.
Right.
So like there's maybe 15, 20 Airbnbs there, not a lot of tourism, and you could really like engage with the locals. Like we went to the same restaurant like 4 or 5 times while we were there, and you get to know the owners of it. It's like an older lady and gentleman. They've been running that thing for like 50 years.
I was going to ask if you got to meet the owner.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And how many people are sitting right in this restaurant? It's a small little place, right?
10 maybe. Yeah. And so many.
Really intimate.
Yeah, very intimate.
Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and you touched on the fact that you also run. So what are some of the things that you do to be able to get your release from stress of running your business? What do you do? Travel's one.
Running's huge for me. I run 5-6 days a week. I train with a club out of St. Catharines. I still compete. I started running when I was in grade 2. I ran all the way through my first year of university, and I quit for about 7 years, gained a ton of weight, moved back to St. Catharines, said I got to get my life back in order from that side of things. And started training again, lost all the weight, started competing again. That has drastically changed my ability to manage my company. I find that just being active gives you so much more patience with everything. And yeah, travel's been the other big one for me. Like I anytime that I have an opportunity, I try to travel. And it doesn't mean that we're going across seas or anything like that. It could be taking our trailer up north, going camping, or going down the Long Point or anything like that as well.
The running element, I got to tell you, I was running for a number of years,
mm-hmm.
and I really lacked the motivation to get back on and run for the last like year and a half. I've gotten in and out of it.
Yeah,
I had found it so challenging to put my shoes on and walk out the door. It's hard. Like it's a commitment.
It is.
There's a gentleman right now. His name's Paul Johnson.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Running across the states.
Yeah. He had the ambition of trying to hit it in 40 days, and like the reality set in real quick on his run.
Uh-huh.
But the cause of what he's doing is obviously fantastic. But the concept of going and running 3,000 miles across the United States,
I know,
is wild.
What is it, like 60 miles a day or something? He was trying
to do 75 miles a day.
Yeah.
I know that we completely digress from talking about Jordan Station Design Co., but like it's wild.
It's amazing.
It's wild. And the caloric output. He posted what his outputs were on calories in a day. Like 6,000 calories he burned in a day. How do you even intake 6,000 while you're running for 14 hours?
You can't.
No,
there's no way.
That's what really hurt him in this. So what type of distances are you running now as a part of your run club?
It depends on the time of year. Like right now, I'm gearing up for a half marathon in the spring. I'll take a little bit of downtime, and then I'll actually get back on the track and be running a few track races through the summer.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I started running track again last year.
At what level are you able to compete now?
I run it normally the open university meets.
Okay.
So that's where I'll run. So Hamilton has like a 1,500 meter night. Toronto will have an 800 meter night, and I'll go out there and see how it goes.
I mean, outside of all the other things I've just learned from you, I just learned that. I had no idea that existed.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of shoes do you use?
Cool. For racing right now, if I'm not on the track, I use Saucony Endorphin Elite.
Yeah.
So they're a plated shoe. They've kind of like newer technology. A lot of the elites wear them.
Yeah.
But you can go a lot faster than them, and they're a lot more comfortable. If I'm on the track, I'll have spikes, but my daily trainers are just a basic Brooks Ghost. Yeah, nothing special.
Okay.
Yep.
And are you involved in any winter sports? Did you do anything through winter or no?
I used to snowboard a lot when I lived in Ottawa. Moving back to Niagara, that was, I think, the thing that I missed the most of moving back here. I try to get out once a year, but the last couple of years have proven to defeat me with that one.
Yeah, it's a challenge.
Yeah.
Fair. Well, it's hard when you're doing a lot of other things and you're not making time for the things. Something that really isn't top of the list.
Yeah.
What about kids? Do you have any kids?
No kids yet. My wife and I have been trying for years and years and years, but fertility is a challenge to navigate sometimes. But that is, put us in the position where somehow we've ended up with 4 huskies now. I don't know if you've seen this on there, but
yeah, I did see.
Yeah, there are 4 huskies. So started out with one, adopted another from her parents, and then a couple other weak decisions through the years. So
I will tell you that I know a number of close friends that have all also struggled with the exact same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And
huskies.
One of them has ski. But that is something that generally is really not discussed a lot about the mental health side of trying to create a family.
Yeah.
When there are fertility issues. Now that's a completely different thing than talking about everything else. But
yeah,
it's tough. It's a huge struggle. So
yeah,
good on you for continuing to try.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's
my wife's strong, so
yeah,
she's going through the brunt of it, right? So
of course,
yeah, it's challenging.
100% it is. That's why sometimes getting away and going on a vacation is a really nice thing to be able to do, right? How to kind of breaks up the reality of what life is sometimes and allows you to go and enjoy a good meal in the Amalfi Coast.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah, that's exactly it.
Jordan, I really appreciate you taking all the time to go over everything and talk about your business, understand how you've grown, how you have looked at the challenges that you've come across in your business, talking about some of the very personal things that we've just discussed. I really appreciate all the time you've given to this, and look forward to hopefully having you back on.
Thanks for having me.
Of course, pleasure.
Appreciate it.
Take care.